Hey tuners, how you doing? Bobby here. I'm here today to do a bit of a video. It will be part a little bit talking and some hyperlapse. The reason I'm doing this is because I'm now installing EPAS, or electronic power assisted steering. Now I've done the manual rack. The 295 wide race tyres are pretty stiff to turn. So I've decided to buy a DCE Pro Race or Pro Street, electronic power steering system. It's controllable, and I'm just going to be doing a hyperlapse to show the type of things I'll be needing to adjust it to make sure I can get the factory upper portion mounted to the lower portion of the motor, and it's all going to be bolt on. So you've got to weld one shaft, which is the adapter, and I'll show you that in a second, and the rest is pretty much bolt on. It actually bolts to the bulkhead crossover shaft, so that's easy. So yeah, let me show you what I've got so far, and then go from there. So this is the one off of my Eclipse, and this I've got the hub off at the moment, and I will basically be starting off measuring both of the shafts from front to back, because I need this to be exactly the same length. Now I know the guys with the Prius power steering adapters, and what they've done is slightly different than what I've done. Theirs can sit around here. Mine's actually sitting right at the bottom, and I've only got one place I can fit that. It's tight, but it goes. So this is the power steering unit. It's a nice chunky unit. It's actually able to be raced, so it's not going to overheat. I've got a control module, and I've also got a dial. You can have it speed censored as well for the wheels, so then as you're moving it will then also adjust, but I didn't want that. I just thought I'd go for the standard dial. You're going to need an adapter. Now these are not easy to find. They're more easier in the US to find. I think it's Woodward Engineering, they do adapters. In the UK it's a little bit tricky. I only found it from one place, so I got this one. This bottom section will fit directly to the bulkhead factory shaft that goes through to connect to your steering rack. So that's actually really good. It's a bolt on for that one. This one is just a slip on. It will be the other way, but don't worry about it for now. So that's just a slip on, and then on this section I'm going to have to weld, sorry for the bad light, I'm going to have to weld on here onto the factory shaft on the inside of here. But I'll show you this because I have another one of these broken down over here. So that's your factory bulkhead. So one end will go to the steering column, one end will go to the steering rack. So that's fine, you don't need to do or modify anything of that. This is a steering column broken down. So what you have is your bottom section, which has got your adjustment and your pivot points. You've got your upper section, which is also a bolt on, and it's got your pivot point underneath here. You've got your upper steering column shaft and your lower steering column shaft. You also have a collar sleeve inside. Now everything is a collapsible setup. So in here you've got some nylon pads, and what this means is if you have an accident, this will collapse on itself. It's got a little bit of a leeway, it's not a huge amount. This has more of a leeway. So when this is in, you're probably sitting about here, and you've got all of this area here, which is probably about 5 inches or so of collapsibility. So that's why it's the shape of I think what they call a double D setup. So what's going to happen here, I've got to allow for my power steering unit to come up, and I've got to weld the shaft on, which I think is somewhere around here. So I actually am not going to have any collapsibility on the steering column or the upper steering column itself. But this is staying the same, not being modified, so that has the collapsibility. So doing this is a very tricky situation because you need to know what you're doing and understand that you are affecting anything if you have an accident. Now, it's a race car build, so there is some kind of workaround, because you don't necessarily going to go full pelt because you're in harnesses. So you've got that safety side of things, and I haven't got the room for a collapsible unit, unfortunately. If I did, it would be nice, but I don't. So that just sits inside here, and then that sits inside here, and it's just a sliding unit. All you have to do is take it apart, knock this out, that comes out, and that comes out. It's really simple to take apart, and just a bit of a hammer on the side of here, and it comes out with the plastic grips, because these are just a fraction oversized to grip inside. On that side, it's pretty straightforward. Well, I say straightforward, you've got a lot of measuring to do. I've got to put this in a lathe, and I've got to trim that down, and then I'll probably rose weld it double-sided, and then I'll probably put a sleeve over it as well, just to make sure. So you've got to make sure that whoever's doing the welding knows what they're doing and do it right, basically, because at the end of the day, it's steering. You don't want it to crack, you don't want it to break. So yeah, thankfully I'm a welder fabricator, and I'm pretty sure I'll be able to take this task on. I've done far worse, but you know, first time for this one, so it's going to be a little bit tricky. It's going to take some time because I need to make sure I get it right first time. Thankfully I do have a spare just in case, but I'd rather not use a spare. So yeah, I'm going to start breaking this down, taking the measurements I need, and go from there. Right, I've got all of the measurements that I need, from shaft length to overall length to wall diameters to everything. So that is going to help me as the end result and figure out. I already knew this part and I forgot to mention it earlier, but I am going to need to make a new bracket here. The reason being is this shaft sticks out further than this shaft will stick out once it's all bolted, because on here I've got 2 mounting bosses and this shaft just isn't long enough, so I can't actually use this shaft or this adapter at all. I possibly could do something and adapt it, but it'll be far too much issues trying to make it bigger and bolt it on, because the idea is I'm making one that's similar to this. It mounts on the factory bolt holes, and it's still going to have a pivot because I'm still going to have an upper pivot. Remember, I want to try and keep the factory upper system as much as possible, including the tilt system. So making one of these brackets is not overly difficult. I've just got to take some measurements, make sure I get everything folded right, and I already know the offset of how this has to sit in the car, so I can take that angle, make the bracket, and all I'm going to do is drill these out, which is just a pinned over rivet, and then I'm just going to put a bolt and a washer inside of it so it still moves around. And that's pretty much as technical as I'm going to get on the bracket side of things. It's going to be pretty strong. I no longer will need the internal bearing in here because it already obviously is self-supporting on its own bearing inside on both the front. The only one that's still going to retain the bearing is the upper portion, because that's obviously staying the same. That's it for now, so the rest of it is just mocking up, fabricating. Some of it might be a little bit slow. I might be out of shot a little while I'm going to drill, because over the drill press is over the back here. So yeah, let's see how I get on. So this is going to be a demonstration on the electronic power steering that I've got. I'm just going to do a quick video just driving up and down the road, just to see the effects that this one has, and just to give you a general idea of the kit that I've got. This isn't the kit that everyone wants to go with. It's not a Prius kit. It's a bit more expensive than a Prius kit. Actually, it's a lot more expensive than a Prius kit, but it's modular and I can upgrade the ECU to offer more assistance if I needed. It shouldn't really be needed. I'm happy with how it feels. I can't think of anything that I would specifically change, apart from, you know, I'd like a smaller motor, but then you start overheating them from what I gather. So yeah, what I'm going to do is just talk you quickly through this, then I'm going to put it in the action camera holder and then just go for a quick drive around the block just to show you. So yeah, so you might not see it very well underneath here. Let me just grab my light on my phone. So it's just underneath there. This is the controller knob that I've got. So left is pretty much zero assistance. It gives a bit, so I can definitely move it, but only while moving forwards as a whole. It's quite stiff, and then when I turn it all the way to the right, that gives me my full force. It's still quite stiff being on quite wide tyres. Normally I run about a 275 or a 295 wide, so it's still fairly stiff. For the normal 245, 255, it shouldn't actually be too bad. So yeah, I'll go through all of that anyway. So let me put this back in the holder. So I apologise for the noise, it is loud. So I just let the wideband warm up. I always do that. Not that this is a review about how I start my car or anything like that. Right now, if I put the controller all the way to 0, I can't really move it too much. It's fairly movable. And then when I put it all the way to full assist, it's still got some fight, but it's not as hard. It seems like it gets easier after a few turns. So what I'll do is I'll just reverse backwards. So this is on full, or pretty much low input. So as I'm going backwards, I can move it. It's quite stiff though. So I'm just watching behind me because I'm just in my garages at the moment. So it's quite stiff. If I go forward, it's still quite stiff, but definitely usable. And now if I transfer it back to full assist, when I go backwards, it's much easier now. It's definitely much easier with the full assist. Than without. So one-handed now on the full assist, it really does help. But then when you're sitting stationary, one-handed is not really easy, but two-handed is doable. It's very doable. But it's definitely much easier when you start rolling. So yeah, there we go. It's something where I'm happy with. Other people may want a little bit of more assistance. It's not something that you can just do one finger like the Prius one was on the group buy. Mine's definitely not like that, but I didn't want it like that. I didn't want super lightweight steering. I wanted a steering where I could have some heaviness and feel to it. That's why I opted for this kit. So I have an adjustable knob. But as I said, I can upgrade it and I can change the ECU to their custom ECU, and it offers something like an extra 15 newton meters of force, and they said it makes it a lot easier. But then things like that is just getting more costly, considering this is already quite a costly kit anyway. I think I'll just stick with this, and it will most likely do me anyway. It seems fine. So yeah, there we go. I think this is the end of the video, just to show you the final rundown. Yeah, wiring was simple actually. Ground and an earth and a switched power, which I just took from the cigarette lighter because it's not used anyway. That was it, plug and play pretty much, most of it, apart from the bracketry and the mounting. It was actually a fairly simple install. So awesome, hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that it helps you decide on a EPS kit. Take care.